Robert sat behind the wheel of his car, the dim glow of the dashboard illuminating his tense expression. The night stretched out before him, dark and foreboding, as he navigated the winding roads that snaked through the dense forest. Rain lashed against the windshield, adding to the sense of unease that permeated the air. He had always enjoyed night drives, finding solace in the quiet solitude of the empty roads. But tonight was different. Tonight, a sense of dread hung heavy in the air, clinging to him like a suffocating shroud. As he rounded a bend, the headlights of his car illuminated something ahead, a figure standing in the middle of the road. Robert's heart raced as he slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the wet asphalt. The figure remained motionless, its silhouette obscured by the darkness. Cautiously, Robert rolled down his window, peering out into the night. "Hello," he called out, his voice trembling with apprehension. There was no response, only the sound of rain pounding against the car. With a shaky hand, Robert reached for his phone, intending to call for help. But as his fingers brushed against the screen, he hesitated. Something about the situation felt off, sending a chill down his spine. Gathering his courage, Robert stepped out of the car, the rain soaking through his clothes. He approached the figure cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. As he drew closer, he could make out the outline of a woman, her face obscured by the hood of her jacket. "Are you okay?" Robert asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman remained silent, her gaze fixed on him with an intensity that made him shudder. And then, without warning, she spoke, a voice like ice, sending shivers down his spine. "You shouldn't have come here, Robert," she said, her words dripping with malice. "This is not a place for the living." Robert's blood ran cold as he stumbled backward, his mind reeling with fear. The woman's words echoed in his mind, sending a wave of terror crashing over him. He wanted to run, to flee from this nightmarish encounter, but his legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot. "What do you mean?" Robert managed to stammer, his voice barely audible over the sound of the rain. The woman's lips curled into a sinister smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth that glinted in the dim light. "You're in danger, Robert," she whispered, her voice like a ghostly whisper in the wind. "There are things here that you cannot begin to imagine, things that prey on the souls of the living." Robert's mind raced as he struggled to make sense of the woman's words. Was this some kind of sick joke, or was she truly trying to warn him of some unseen danger? Before he could react, the woman stepped closer, her eyes burning with an otherworldly light. "You must leave this place," she urged, her voice urgent, "before it's too late." But even as she spoke, Robert felt a strange compulsion pulling him deeper into the forest, a primal instinct urging him to uncover the truth behind this mysterious encounter. With a sense of dread gnawing at his insides, Robert turned and fled back to his car, the sound of his footsteps drowned out by the pounding rain. As he peeled away from the scene, the woman's haunting words echoed in his mind, filling him with a sense of dread that he couldn't shake. The road stretched out before Robert, winding deeper into the heart of the forest. Each passing mile only served to heighten his unease, the darkness pressing in around him like a suffocating embrace. As he drove, Robert couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that unseen eyes followed his every move from the shadows. His grip on the steering wheel tightened, knuckles turning white with tension. Suddenly, the headlights of his car flickered, casting eerie shadows on the trees lining the road. Robert's heart skipped a beat as the engine sputtered, threatening to die. Panic surged through him as he desperately tried to coax the car back to life, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, the engine roared back to life with a deafening roar, sending a surge of adrenaline coursing through Robert's veins. With a shaky hand, he shifted gears and pressed down on the accelerator, determined to put as much distance between himself and this cursed forest as possible. But as he drove, the sense of dread only intensified, weighing heavy on his soul like a leaden weight. Shadows danced at the edge of his vision, twisting and contorting in the darkness. Strange whispers filled the air, echoing through the confines of the car like a sinister chorus. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the forest fell silent. The rain ceased its relentless assault, leaving only the sound of Robert's pounding heart to fill the void. He glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something lurking in the darkness behind him, but there was nothing. With a shaky sigh of relief, Robert pressed on, his mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. What had happened back there? Who was that woman? And what did she want from him? And most importantly, would he ever make it out of this nightmare alive? As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Robert finally emerged from the forest, his heart pounding in his chest. He drove until he reached the safety of civilization. The memory of that fateful night burned into his mind like a scar. Terry, his fingers drumming nervously on the steering wheel. It was well past midnight, and the darkness outside enveloped everything in an eerie shroud. He was on a remote stretch of highway, miles away from the nearest town, his only company the sound of his own breathing and the soft hum of the engine. The reason for his late-night drive was simple. Terry needed some time alone to clear his head. Life had been throwing him curveballs lately. A failed relationship, mounting bills, and the ever-present feeling of being stuck in a rut. So, he had decided to take a long drive, hoping that the solitude of the open road would bring him some solace. But as he drove deeper into the night, a sense of unease began to settle over him. The darkness seemed to press in from all sides, and the occasional flickering of his headlights revealed nothing but endless stretches of empty road. Just when Terry was beginning to regret his decision to venture out alone, he saw something up ahead. A figure, barely visible in the dim light, standing by the side of the road. Terry slowed down, his heart pounding in his chest. Who would be out here at this hour? As he drew closer, Terry could make out more details. It was a woman, her figure hunched and shrouded in darkness. She seemed to be staring straight ahead, unmoving, as if lost in thought. Terry hesitated for a moment before pulling over, his curiosity getting the better of him. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out as he rolled down his window. The woman turned to face him, and Terry's blood ran cold. Her eyes were wide and vacant, devoid of any emotion. She didn't speak, but her gaze seemed to bore into Terry's soul, sending shivers down his spine. Without another word, Terry hit the gas, the tires screeching as he sped away from the woman by the side of the road. He glanced in his rearview mirror, half expecting to see her chasing after him. But the road behind was empty, swallowed up by the darkness. As Terry drove on, his mind raced with questions. Who was that woman? What was she doing out here all alone? And why did she look at him like that? But try as he might, he couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had settled over him like a thick fog. Little did Terry know, his encounter with the mysterious woman was just the beginning of a night he would never forget. The encounter with the woman lingered in Terry's mind like a haunting melody, refusing to be drowned out by the hum of the engine or the passing scenery. He tried to focus on the road ahead, but every shadow seemed to hold a hidden threat. Every rustle of the wind a whispered warning. Despite his growing unease, Terry pressed on, determined to put as much distance between himself and the woman as possible. But as the hours passed and the darkness deepened, he found himself venturing into unknown territory, the road becoming increasingly desolate and foreboding. Just when Terry was beginning to think he had lost his way, he saw it, a sign up ahead, barely visible in the dim light. It read, "Welcome to Ravenswood. Population 500. Relief washed over Terry as he realized he was nearing civilization, but it was short-lived. As he entered the town, Terry couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The streets were deserted, the buildings looming over him like silent sentinels. Not a single light shone from any of the windows, and the air was heavy with an oppressive silence. Terry hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to turn around and flee, but something compelled him to keep driving. He had come this far, and he needed answers. Parking his car by the side of the road, Terry stepped out into the cold night air, his senses on high alert. The town seemed frozen in time, trapped in a perpetual state of darkness and decay. As Terry walked down the deserted streets, he couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following his every move. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence, a low, guttural moan emanating from the shadows ahead. Terry froze, his heart pounding in his chest as he strained to see through the darkness. And then, they emerged, figures shrouded in tattered rags, their faces twisted into grotesque masks of pain and anguish. Terry stumbled backward, his mind reeling with fear and confusion. What had he stumbled upon? Who were these people, and what had happened to them? But before he could even begin to comprehend the horror unfolding before him, the figures began to advance, their outstretched hands reaching for him with an otherworldly hunger. With a cry of terror, Terry turned and ran, his footsteps echoing through the silent streets as he fled into the darkness. But no matter how fast he ran, he couldn't escape the feeling that he was running towards something even darker, something lurking just beyond the edge of his vision, waiting to consume him whole. Terry ran as if his life depended on it, his heart hammering in his chest with each frantic step. The streets of Ravenswood seemed to twist and turn, leading him deeper into the heart of darkness. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being herded like prey, guided towards an inevitable and terrifying fate. As he rounded a corner, Terry stumbled upon an old, dilapidated building looming ominously before him. Its windows were boarded up, and the doors hung off their hinges, inviting him into its dark embrace. With no other options left, Terry dashed inside, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The interior of the building was as decrepit as the exterior, with crumbling walls and a pervasive smell of decay hanging in the air. Terry pressed on, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls as he searched for some sign of sanctuary. But as he ventured deeper into the building, he realized he was not alone. Whispers echoed through the darkness, voices speaking in hushed tones that sent shivers down Terry's spine. And then he saw them. The figures from the streets, their twisted forms lurking in the shadows, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. With a sinking feeling of dread, Terry realized the truth. Ravenswood was not a town of the living, but a graveyard of souls trapped in a never-ending nightmare. And he, unwittingly, had stumbled into their domain, a lone outsider in a world of darkness and despair. As the figures closed in around him, Terry knew he had no choice but to confront the horrors that lurked within Ravenswood. With a newfound resolve, he faced his fears head-on, his heart pounding in his chest as he prepared for the final showdown. In a desperate bid for survival, Terry unleashed all his pent-up rage and fear, fighting tooth and nail against the encroaching darkness. Blow by blow, he pushed back against the nightmarish creatures, refusing to succumb to the same fate that had befallen the unfortunate souls trapped within Ravenswood's cursed embrace. And then, just when all seemed lost, a glimmer of light pierced through the darkness, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon, banishing the shadows and dispelling the nightmares that had haunted Terry's every step. With a final surge of strength, Terry fought his way to freedom, emerging from the darkness battered but alive. As he stumbled out into the light of the new day, Terry knew he would never forget the horrors he had witnessed in Ravenswood. But he also knew that he had faced his demons and emerged victorious, stronger and more resilient than ever before.